I want to dig into you as a person, into your background a little bit, learn more about you, and talk about all the cool stuff and your experience, because every journey through the game might come back. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment about the episode. And if you're watching on Spotify or listening on a traditional podcast platform, please follow, rate us 5 stars, and leave a review if you would be so kind. Thank you. Welcome to the Way to Know You podcast, Season 2, Episode 28. My name is Nick Rounds, and I will be your host. My next guest is the Chief Creative Officer and co-founder of ForeVR Games. Having worn many hats and paid many dues in the games industry, his mission has always been to find the fun of any game, regardless of genre. Having spent time creating both AAA and mobile games, today he's putting shots on goal to create the next super fun virtual reality game with his team at ForeVR. When he's not busy listening to brutal death metal, he's spending quality time with his spouse, Diamond. Mike Doom, wait, I know you. How are you today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm well. It's good to see you. It's been quite a minute since we've convened. We're two fellow metalheads in game development, and it's hard for us to once you find a fellow metalhead in game development, you kind of just have to you have to hold on to them as much as possible. So, and also I love that you're currently rocking a Hawaiian Slayer shirt, which is incredible.
Yeah, look at
that. It's very on brand for you, but that's one thing I really appreciate about you and Diamond. So how are you, sir?
Life's been going well. Life's been going well. Got involved in this whole VR thing.
Yeah, we're gonna dig into all that. And it was funny because at the start, because I wasn't sure if it was ForeVR Games or ForeVR, because it's spelled FORE and then capital VR. To be punny, and of course it is just forever, but you are.
I tell you, people do trip up on that a lot, quite continually. When we came up with the name, we're like, we are ForeVR Games. We make games you want to play forever. We feel so good about this, and we go to VR and we're like, we're going to be so .com about this. Let's put forever, but remove one of the vowels, and then VR. Oh man, what if we put it in some cool thing in text? And we were like, oh, that's so cool.
Everybody thinks that you're like a golf studio that makes VR games or something. Yeah.
But some people have really glommed onto it. They really love it to be because it's really our approach, which is kind of the fun thing about it, which is it is for VR. We are making games first for VR.
And before we dig into all the amazing stuff that your current company does, I want to dig into you as a person, into your background a little bit, learn more about you, and talk about all the cool stuff and your experience, because every journey through the game might come back. Every journey through a games industry is unique and different. And nobody else, no one person has the same journey. And so I'd like to dig into your journey because I think it's fascinating. But before we dig into that, I want to start with what I always like to start out with, is finding out what turned you into a nerd. Respectfully, Mike, what was the moment or moments that you realized that you were a video game geek?
I was sitting there. I don't know what age. I think it was somewhere. I always say 9, but it was I was doing the math, and I'm like somewhere around 6. I was playing the Atari 2600, and it was just the thing. It was just so much fun. It was what the heck was Adventure? No, what was the one where you Pitfall? It's
Pitfall. Yep.
Pitfall, and I'm just I couldn't get enough of it. I was there every day, and then started playing Joust, and I'm like, and right there, I was like, I want to do that.
Yeah, 6 seems to be the magic age for that. Right? And it's so funny because the games are so simple, and yet and then you play them again today, and it's either a mix of like it's super hard and frustrating, or it comes back to you like you never stop playing it. It's a weird mix.
Right. Love it. So living the dream. Living the dream.
Were there any other games that were like super formative to you after that? That like really left an impression?
I mean, so many games. I mean, I would imagine you would relate. I mean, it's countless. I would say I would more classify it on like consoles and probably genres. So I was a little bit more twitchy. My brother played more of the more heady like RPGs, but I dabbled, right? Played a little bit, a lot of Final Fantasy. What was the other one? Dragon. I'm forgetting the name.
Dragon's Quest.
Yeah, I think it was Dragon's Quest. Played the crap out of that one. Little slime.
Nice. Oh yeah. Yep.
So like that whole Japanese wave that came in was just super into it. Mario Brothers. So we had NES, SNES, Genesis, all the way up to I think that was really N64.
Yeah, and N64 is, well, because you and I are kind of similar in age. Yeah, N64 is kind of like the cutoff where it's like you either took a break from gaming for a little bit, or you come back to it. So
I like to reverse ask, what drove you away from games? Did you get driven away? I got driven away.
It's not really I got driven away. I think it's that so I famously missed out on PlayStation 1. I never ever owned a PlayStation 1. I just wasn't really interested in like the CD-ROM version of it. It literally wasn't until PlayStation 2 that I kind of came back. But it was really just like playing Grand Theft Auto 3, and the thing that literally made me buy a PS2 Slim was Guitar Hero, because you could for like a couple months you couldn't play it anywhere except for PS2, and so I started filling my backlog of like Vice City, Guitar Hero, God of War. Like those are all things I hadn't played, and so I just added them to my backlog of PS2. And but yeah, basically like first couple of years of college when I was supporting myself and I couldn't afford a console, more or less. That's kind of what put me out of gaming, is the hard knocks of life and not being able to afford any of that stuff, unfortunately, and literally just playing N64 or what existing consoles I had. But and now currently I have everything, so it's a wealth of riches. But yeah,
what pushed me away?
Say it one more time.
What pushed me away?
What pushed you away, Mike?
What pushed me away was PlayStation. I hated load times. That was the thing. I went in there and it's like, why would I wait? It's like, remember it was like N64 was there and their whole thing was like, you get to the game instantly. And I'm like, yes, I'm an impatient man. With a lot of energy, right? Just bridling with energy, going, let's go. This is waste of my time. What the hell? So I just PlayStation drove me nuts. I'm like, CDs.
Yep.
I'll just go load it on my computer. So I went to PC for a while, right? So I didn't really go away, but I went to friends' places to play them. It's like, ugh. So I saw some of them, like Grand Theft Auto. We played the original ones on PC.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's pretty much how I felt about it as well. It really was like the load time was like a huge turnoff for quite a while. But yeah,
I mean, I speak the ethos, man. That's what I work towards. Like, hate load times. I try to extinguish them with all of my games with force.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's smart, and it's actually something that people take for granted a lot of times. Is obviously like the current generation, like Xbox is taking really great strides of like they have quick resume, like it breaks all the time,
Right.
but you can jump back into a game really quick and you kind of take it for granted. But yeah, the user experience portion of it, of like I shouldn't be left on a loading screen longer than 30 seconds is something that people take for granted. And in those early PlayStation games, like, like if you're installing Grand Theft Auto, it's like you'd go make dinner and come back and maybe it'll be done loading the game, hopefully.
There's a sect of consumers that are out there that are very impatient. And so I found that appealing to them works just well, right? So if you get them to interactivity in less than 3 clicks, with as minimal load time as possible, ideally under 3 seconds, almost instantaneous. Man, the volume of users that gets through your funnel, exponential.
Do you want to talk about that? Because you and I know about the funnel, and that's just a generic thing, but it's not something.
I was drawing it today for some people. Look.
There you go. Well, let's dig into it, because I don't think I've talked about this with anybody else, but this is very much something that Zynga taught me, and I can't speak for you if it taught you that as well. But so Mike, as a fellow game design expert, what is the player funnel, and why is it so important to game developers, specifically on mobile and just in general?
Really good question, and it's ubiquitous. Now, I've kind of been on all platforms. Really, when you think about the user journey, right? It starts when they see the first inkling or a recommendation of your game, and that's their first experience. And what do you want? We try to think about that as the first part of the funnel, right? That's probably the maximum amount of people who are going to see it. Are going to see it and go, "Ooh, I want to do that thing," right? So it goes from there to the store page, right? Store page then goes to a conversion cycle. So that's a whole thing, but we won't go into that. So essentially, think that user comes in, purchases your game, right? Even if they purchase your game, they may never boot your game. Happens, right? And so so the users go down, right, in that step. And then as you think about the sequential steps of your game to get to play, the first step of play, like load sequence, right? User registration, acceptance of user policies. What happens on each one of those funnel steps are there's a certain specific amount of users who go, nah, screw that, close, I'm good, right? Like, what? How much money was that? Oh, it was free. I don't care, right? like it's bubble gum, right? So they'll just jump onto the next game because you're wasting their time, right? So think that's just one myopic view of that. And so how we think about that is as you're going down from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the bottom of the funnel is ideally what we think is a retained user, right? And that's generally what we call the hook point. So what is it from the very top of the funnel, that hook point, how do we get them there optimally, right? And so that essentially is the user funnel, right? Users fall off as they go down the funnel.
Right. And not thinking of users in like a really morbid way of just reducing them to fluid or droplets of water, but you are losing people along the way, and how wide your funnel is at the bottom kind of tells you like how successful your game is. And also a little bit above that, like the first couple, like 3 to 5 steps of your funnel really tells you a story. Like if you have a huge drop off from like 95% to like 75% somewhere, you've lost a ton of people already.
And the goofy thing is everybody has to do it because you don't know if it's something you're just screwing up, like you're accidentally asking for permission in the wrong way, right? Which is just when they see that pop up in that way with that specific phrasing, right? Like you'll go, there's a 20% user drop from that step to that step. And you're like, ooh, that was, and we all do it. We all make mistakes, right? Like we don't know holistically. We're not magicians, right? We have a lot of tactics, but we're like, we got to watch to see how users going through this thing, right? Like, geez.
Yeah, and like from a game development standpoint, it's such a hard nut to crack because like there's some things that work for other games that just you try it on a different game, it just doesn't work the same, and you have to really know your audience. And
but you do know what does work the same: the methodology, the methodology and approach. Then you are able to systemize it in a way that you can get predictable outcomes.
Thank you for entertaining that question. Just because we touched on it, and it's a little bit inside baseball, but it's generic enough that it won't get either of us in trouble because every game studio has to deal with it. So,
I mean, I actually publish. So if you go to, I'll plug one of my websites at the end.
Sure.
Or whatever. I have on my LinkedIn and like some of my website stuff. I actually have a presentation that goes into the full-on production process that goes over that type of stuff.
Awesome. I will make sure to link it in the description of the video, as well as let you plug it again afterwards. So we took a little bit of a tangent, but I actually want to go back to focus on you again, sir. And you're strobing to dodging more personal questions. How dare you? So you went to DigiPen, and
Go Dragons.
It's a famous school in the Pacific Northwest, where I'm currently residing. I'm in Seattle, that has many a games industry alum. So you started out in engineering and made your way to production, and you've worn a couple hats along the way before you kind of found your calling.
Yep.
What are some key moments throughout your career that kind of cemented what you're really passionate about?
Interesting. I can think of a few things that come top of mind that really kind of. One was, one to make video games and experimenting, like as a kid, right? Like when you're thinking about it, obsessing about it, like playing around and tinkering with computers. I was fortunate enough to grow up at a time where I was able to get my hands on a 286 and just tinker, right? My dad gave me a computer. It's like, ooh, it's mine. It's black and white, but it's mine, right? And so I really got to know that intimately, and I really have to thank Will Wright and Sim City. Good game. Like fell in love with it, right? And really the kind of simulation aspect of it. And I kind of fell in love with simulation and sim. Like, how do I make that thing perpetuate itself doing the thing that it's supposed to be doing, right? And so really started scripting, started coding then. So about middle school, started scripting, coding, just getting into it, and then just doing it. And that's really the big thing that I really want to reinforce is like just doing it, right? That really was informative for the future of like, well, what is this thing, right? But I would say it's 1, 2. I'll give 2 or 3. I'll give it 2 or 3. 2, going DigiPen, just. Yeah, I went in there with some scripting knowledge, not really good hardcore engineering knowledge. I was really good at, I excelled at theoretical mathematics. I like that stuff. Who knew? Algebras, love them. I don't know why. It makes sense in my brain, right?
Well, whatever resonates with you, yeah, then it works.
I mean, I talk to these calculators where they're like, I got a friend who can divide, like double-digit numbers by double-digit numbers and come up with it instantly. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that, man. I'll write a program.
There you go. Take the easy way out. It's all good.
Right. But DigiPen, so that was a big one. I mean, that taught me what I knew. It was crazy. So DigiPen, the reason why it was so great and so transformative, right? What was a transformative thing? Is they had us work in teams every year. And that was really, really the best thing for us. It taught us to work together as a team to create an output of a work product, regardless of if you hit scope or not. So, and it really gave you an intimate understanding with the game development process by which you should conduct yourself for making quality games over and over and over again, right? It's a process, right? But it's a known process. So that was really helpful. And then, just hitting through my career, man. Like hitting each one of them stops. Dude, I got to work at the Mouse. I worked at Warner Brothers. Like, I was super into. I kept trying to bring back Scrappy Doo. They kept telling me no, and I'm like, come on, let's bring him back. It'll be fun. And then the Frog tried to bring back the Frog. Right? No, can't do that. I'm like, I want to bring it back so bad.
You sound like me trying to convince Konami to bring back Adventure Island.
Right. Trying to bring back Mutant League Football. Like, come on, do it. EA, if you're listening, do it.
Bring back Road Rash, you cowards.
Gosh. So, okay. Like, I got a game in my head for that I want to do. Like, here, I'm just going to tell you because why not? Want to make a game. Do you do Strava?
Wait, what's Strava?
Strava, Zwift, the paddle one inside, right? It's like a bicyclist.
Gotcha.
In Long Beach, those guys.
Familiar? I haven't done it. No.
I think the dude who did Eat Sleep Play works there.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, right. Game's awesome, but what if you did that and meshed it with Road Rash?
Jamming pipe wrenches into people's spokes to flip them over the bars.
I kind of do it already. I got a steering column, so I see people, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get them, like ram into them.
That's when you know it's time to come a frere. I remember when I was binging Grand Theft Auto 3 or Vice City. Like I seriously was like binging it for like 2 or 3 days. I remember I left my place and I walked by a cop car, and I said in my head, as I was walking by the cop car, I was like, "Oh, if I steal that, I get 5 shotgun ammo." And I was like,
"Oh,
wait."
jeez.
I was like, "Wait, I'm in the real world right now. What am I doing?" Yeah.
Yourself, right? So yeah, I don't know. Then each one of the stops in the career, man, that was just like. But I would say, like, if you kind of look at that and you kind of take the macro of it, I would say, it's getting reps, right? The more reps that I've been doing, when I say rep, it's a repetition of doing the same thing. And I have a saying called "always be shipping," because you should always be shipping. Because what that is you're going through the full cycle of creating something from nothing, and the more times you do it, the more things you see, and the increasing dimensionality you see of that process, of how complex the thing is, but of how the same it is literally every time.
Yeah.
Literally every time, right? Interactive art, it's awesome. Commercial interactive art.
You said something interesting about your early experience in DigiPen, and how something that was really beneficial to you was getting on a team and seeing how those dynamics were. I'm curious, is there anything that kind of sticks with you from that time of being on those teams at DigiPen that seemed to be like either one-to-one or like a true, this is exactly as it was at DigiPen for you?
100%. 100%. I remember going to my dad and complaining, going, "Dad, I'm working on this," because I'm a team-based guy. So backstory. I play lacrosse. I am a high octane mofo who loves high impact sports. I love hitting things, right? Love surfing, right? Love doing trapeze stuff. Like, I love velocity, and I also love hitting things. So I played a lot of hockey, played a lot of lacrosse. So I love to smash things, right? I'm a brute, right? Um, uh, Now I'm forgetting where I'm going with this because I was getting too like amped up with it.
You love team sports. You love team activities. Talking about DigiPen and being part of a team and how that transfers to the games industry and your experience there.
Right. So yeah, it was So when it like fast forward into like DigiPen, right? Like from team sports. So going into DigiPen, like I was talking to my dad, and I'm like, "Dad, I'm working on this team, and not everybody's really good, and some people really suck, and it's really hard to work with them because they're mean, like, and they're jerks. Like, they just don't want to work with you." And he was like, "Yep, this could be like real life. This could be great. Yeah, I'm glad you're doing that." And so what it really did is it taught you to work as a team of disparate people from very different backgrounds, but all who love games, right? And all have a passion. You find your little niche of like how you work with and who you work with really well, to excel at that game, at that college. It's really hard. So
Yeah, chemistry will get you far. It's great when you find people that like really work well together with you.
Yeah.
But eventually, once you start growing as a company or as a team, you have to hire people from outside, and every person you hire kind of changes the chemistry that's on the team for better or worse. And that's the thing that's always
none.
Yeah.
No. Just like people, right? It's just like people. None of it's right. It's I call them. You'll find them a few times, and when you do, hold on to it and have a hold on to it, have a good time, right? I call them unicorn teams. It's happened a few times, right? Zynga was one of them when we worked together. It was a unicorn time. It was business is bumping, right? Work's going. There's challenges, but fun. A lot of smart people around you. embrace those times, because it doesn't work like that all of the time. You're gonna have your ups and your downs with them.
Yeah, I was gonna say it kind of tests your character and grows you as a person if you can make a team that doesn't really work well together work, or if you just happen to find a through path of building a bridge between a team to get them to be just work together better. Or maybe you have I'm just going to use this as a general term, but you have a grumpy engineer that doesn't like to play nice with other people, but ships really great code, and maybe you just have a coffee or a libation after work or something and hash out, okay, like, do you really love games? Why are you so grumpy? So
Yeah.
I feel you there for sure. But yeah, no, that's interesting. Thank you for digging into that. So you touched on Warner Brothers, you touched on the mouse.
The mouse.
So from those early days.
Wait. Funny story. Wait.
Yeah, go for it.
Metal story. I have never met more people who like Napalm Death than I have at Disney.
For those listening that don't know who Napalm Death is, they're more or less the grandparents of grindcore, which is one of the most extreme versions of metal. Actually, my favorite subgenre. Shout out to Nazem.
No way. That's what we play.
Nice. See, I told you, this metal people have to stick together, man. That's how it goes. That's
man, dude, I have a few others. One's a lawyer at Warner, I think, and then there's a few other friends that are industry that are metal.
Nice. So in those early days at Warner Brothers and the mouse, what are some of the biggest lessons that you learned in your career along the way? Beyond like DigiPen, like once you're actually like in the industry making games and it's like not just school fun time anymore, we actually in the trenches, like what are some of the early lessons that like really formed who you are today during that time?
What are some of the lessons? Okay. Work hard, like really work hard. When you go in there, it's treat it with respect and treat it like a good worker, right? Like go to work every day, go to 9 a.m. to 6:30 and actually put in like full day and do work. It's not all fun and games. Right? Like we work very hard. We take work very responsibly. Two, really found that you need to have fun while you're making games. Really found early on it's at DigiPen that you would see the teams that did not have fun making their games. It just shows in the product. It's just a little bit more. It's just not bright as bright, right? Doesn't mean it's going to kill the project, by the way, right? The dice of fate are very fun.
No kidding.
Doesn't matter how good the game is. Doesn't mean there you go. As you learn, as you go through your career, doesn't matter how good your game is. Depends on a lot more of it, right? It's only one part of the chemical cocktail that creates video games, right? The commercially successful video games, right? Best game in the world with no audience.
Yeah, or the best game in the world with a terrible funnel, and you're shedding your audience. Yeah,
or you put the wrong pop-up at the beginning. I love the pop-up example. I've seen it. You see everything. I love to relate it. Yeah. I was gonna go into more lacrosse relations, but I'll save you it.
I'm sure there's somebody at home being like, I want to hear more about the lacrosse. Dig into the
man, if you are in the game industry and you see me, if you ever want to throw the ball, I always have my stick with me.
That's a threat and a challenge.
Or awesome. Bicycle or surf, right? If you're by the coast and I'm here, you're in LA, let me know. Super fun.
Awesome. So after that general formative period, you moved on to Electronic Arts, EA. I didn't know this about you. I didn't know that you were, because you started out in Los Angeles, but then after that, you were kind of hopping to other international stations of EA, specifically Beijing and London.
Mm.
Did you have any big challenges or culture shock moments when overseeing those projects they're working on? You know, the light questions.
So yeah, like do not speak a foreign language. I took German, and I grew up in San Diego, where everybody speaks Spanish. Bad move, right? So
Lo
here I
siento.
am. I'm going, all right, I'm an entrepreneur. Where are we going to put this thing? Working with ends up being Beijing. So I'm like, okay, because I'm driven by my gut and I love food. So I'm like, okay, moving out there. But it was really infrastructure that brought me out there. But go out there, but man, did I speak any Chinese, no Mandarin, right? You fly into this pea soup fog of these neon lights, right? Love neon. Just these neon lights are glowing through the smog, right? Which I come to find out. And nobody speaks anything at all remotely close to English at all, right? And you approach people and they do this to you, right? Thank science for John Yen and my GM who brought me in there. Like, oh God, cultural shock, man, just shock. Like it was, and then just going from there, it was education on how a different culture approaches work and life and doing stuff, and it really has you, yeah, it blows your mind, man. But getting there was like a very big step from like living in the US, but I had been working with international developers for the better part of my career from the beginning. When I first started, I was an engineer. You're like, how do I get an engineer like producer? I shipped a game. So there's this French trivia game, right? Had 3 months to do it. Did it in 1 month. I had like 3 bugs, right? I was like, yeah, I had the brew SKU, right? And I just started to like update the design for it. So they're like, take these 5 other games. I'm like, okay, sounds good. Then I got to work with Capybara Games on a Happy Feet game, and just made Scooby-Doo games. It was awesome. Awesome.
You mentioned something interesting about the way that China approaches work culturally. I guess, is there anything specific there that is different and unique in terms of the way that they approach work and diligence compared to Western workers?
So much so, I've have I given a talk about that? I've given a talk about culturalization of game through approach once at a conference in Beijing. Yeah, no, they do it different. So it's a very like culturally very, very different. So when working over there, it's generally the king model. So when they generally put like just every corporation, one smart person, and they drop them in, and culturally, everybody asks how, right, before they ask why. And I'm like, that's interesting. Haven't seen that before. So these are things that I've noticed, right, personally. No, everything.
Right.
But so when looking over there, I'm like, oh wow. So essentially, if I go over there, they'll listen to anything that I say, and they'll ask themselves how before they ask why, because they don't really care about why so much. And I'm like, huh, okay. So really, it was very different, right? And it was culturally, like, when working with that and recognizing that and talking to them and going, hey, in the West, this is how we think, right? It was literally like, yeah, it's fundamentally a different way of the approach, and it's not wrong, right? And it's actually really good and virtuous in a lot of good ways, right? So it has you open up your eyes to see, oh wow, there's different ways that you can do it, and they both work, and they're both efficient, just different, right? But there is some very stark differences like that one, right? Like, and then when you go to the West, I really found it was funny. It was a shell shock. It's funny. I was shell shocked when I came back from China, because I'm used to, when I say something where I'm like, I'm used to directing, and they're like, all right, on it, boom, attack, right? I go to England, and everybody asks why before how. And it goes down to and the US is even worse. Or Worse, different, even more pronounced. It's not worse. It's not worse. It's just more pronounced, right?
Right.
From the bottom of the food chain to the top of the food chain, from CEO down to janitor. Why am I doing what I'm doing? Right. And so you find yourselves in a lot of mental gymnastics in the West that you wouldn't find in the East, at least at the time period when I was there. Right.
Sure.
All my friends are saying it's way different now than it was, then.
Well, yeah. Yeah, I was going to say, especially now in the age of most everybody working from home and, the hubs of gaming that were there 20 or 30 years ago are much different now. Like, it's not locked to...
Oh, it's thriving. It was really crazy. All of my guys have taken huge jobs. It's nuts. Like, so because you come in and say, it was very interesting, my approach. And I love to say it because go United States, because we are awesome. Thank you, Hollywood, for helping educate or helping teach the world English to make it easier for me to communicate with everybody. Oh my gosh, like the machine of America, we kick butt. We have really helped.
I'm trying everything in my willpower to not get into Team America just for the fun of it. But
I know, man. I know. There's plus and sides to nice to everything. Right?
We all know what I'm about to say.
But anyways, sorry, I'm going on.
No, you're good. You're good. No, it was I was just curious. But yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that. I've only really had one engineer. I had a really great engineer here in Seattle, who he actually asked me the how before the why, because he never really questioned why I was asking for it, but he always drug me through the mud of, okay, but how are we going to do that? And he would bring me through scenarios of things that I hadn't even thought of yet. And in the process, it's either that he talked me out of what I wanted to do, or he challenged me so hard that I came up with a better design than what I started with.
That's a great point.
Yeah, I'm so thankful for that, because that's the most important thing for me in game development. Because like, I'm a game designer, and the assumption is that the game designer should or should not, should like in generally be like the owner of ideas, or like, the master idea person. But that's not necessarily true. They're supposed to be like the torchbearer of ideas, and also be the torchbearer for the player specifically. Which means that anybody from the studio, from the CEO to the janitor, if they have a good idea, they deserve to be heard. And if it's good for the goose, it's good for the gander. And if there's a fantastic idea that works way better, listen to it, incorporate it, and ask how. But yeah, that's a huge personal lesson for me, for sure, is always listen to your teammates, because they're going to come up with something you never thought of half the time.
Oh yeah.
So you touched on your unicorn team at Zynga. You and I both worked at Zynga. And something that really, really impressed me about you, in addition to just your chipper nature, your morale, the thing that really blew me away about you is just like how much of an amazing product cheerleader you are, how much of a team cheerleader you are, how you're always you're always quick to improve team morale and motivation. And your superpower to me personally always seems to be encouraging others to find the fun quickly. So, Mike, when did you realize that was a gift that you had?
That I'm an instigator? Young age, man. Yeah, like straight up, just young age. I'm an instigator. I like to instigate fun because I like to have fun with friends. And you develop just a skill from wanting to get friends to do things with you, to rally them, because everybody likes different things, and the things that I like, I gotta rally people to. So I gotta always champion. Come to my death metal shows. Come on. 3 people show up. You're like, it's good enough. But yeah, no, it's and really, I really have to owe it to my dad. He really, he's a sales guy through and through, right? Businessman, love him to death. And he really taught me a lot of fundamentals that really came down to read the Dale Carnegie book of how to win friends and influence people. It's literally how I live my life. And I was like, wow, that's really fun. I remember there was a guy at EA who was like recommended me the book. He was like, Mike, have you read this book? And I'm like, no, I have not. I'm like, you should read it because it is you. And I'm like, awesome. So thank you, Dad. Right. So it's just to rally people, man. Right. And I love to party. I love, like, when I say party, I like to go, like, when let's go off-roading, let's go surfing together, right? Let's go do extracurricular activities that are super fun, right? Surfing, cycling, being bands, right? Like, do you like to draw together? Let's go draw, right? Let's go hack computers. Super fun. So yeah, man. Doing all those things, you just kind of start rallying people and just finding this, like, you kind of identify with people and go, I think what a really good articulation of it is like maybe making a contract with them, right? Like verbally, like that is like clear and defined because you kind of know them, and you're like, this is what we're getting into. You cool with this? Here we go. It's gonna get weird and fun, right? That going to making video games, not anything.
Well, I mean, it goes back to the thing I was touching on earlier, specifically about, going out after work, getting coffee or a drink with somebody. And even just playing a game with somebody alone tells you a lot about a person.
Do you want some fun management tips? I'm like, no kidding.
As somebody with three direct reports, by all means.
Oh, dude, a really good tip is for teams as small as you, right? Go give people treats. So random treats have been a signature of mine since I started. I started doing it probably about, I would say EA actively is when I really started to do it. Where it really came from is an idea from South Park, where I was watching the South Park movie and Cartman and the team came up with, hey, let's get everybody to go do this one thing. Let's give them punch and pie, right? Just put punch and pie on there. Everybody will show up, right? And so I was working at the time at EA, creating these. I was adapting games to new platforms. I was proving new platforms and giving these gigantic presentations to the entire studio, right? Through divisions, right? And people just fall asleep in them, right? Because it's technically dense, and people are like, okay, like I've done this a few times and all of them suck. How do I make it, like, I'm going to rally this? So we went to Marie Callender's and ordered, 15, 20 pies, and made Kool-Aid, and we put punch and pie will be served, and we did it. And it was freaking transformative. Like, reason why, right? As an interactive designer, you may appreciate this. So what we did is we gave them a device to make them listen. What they do is, what do you do when you eat? You're not saying nothing. You're sitting there. You got to be looking at something, right? They soak in way more because they associate it with pleasure.
Right? I was going to say you're getting dopamine hit of like a lemon meringue at the same time, or like a sip of punch. Yeah.
And doing it genuinely, right? Or it's like, oh my God, this is awesome. Recognize it, right? And so go, okay, I'm going to give them a good presentation. They're going to like get wonderful. And so my presentations were attended way more. And what happened was people remembered things, and they also associated that with positivity, which created more communication with inside of the team. I started adapting that over to Zynga, where we had random pie every other Wednesday, and we brought in our peer teams. When you bring in your peer teams, right, you got to think about the grease that keeps your game going, right? Be very good friends with your paralegal. Be very good friends with IT, right? Give them treats randomly and invite them to your functions because they are part of your team. They help you function. Do not disregard them. They're very important, right? And what happens is more stuff happens faster because they like you, because you work better with them. And that was one of the fundamental things what I found at the very beginning of my career. Be nice. Nobody likes working with a jerk.
Yeah, that's actually a rule that we have at our current company when we interview people. There's really a secret question on the questionnaire, which is this person a jerk?
So I'm telling you, man, random treats. It has been transformative in my career, and I have feedback from friends, the same thing with them, right? It's like, reward people with random treats, get creative about it, right? Like I do it today when I'm working with a dev. I'll send them Funyuns, and because they're usually not from the US, and they go, "What is a Funyun?" And they eat it, and they're like, "What? What? Wow." I love bringing American things international. It is a very, very fun treasure of mine.
I'm spoiled here in Seattle because there's a local market, a local Asian market called Awajimaya, and I don't know if you were in the Pacific Northwest, you might have stopped by in Awajimaya. But they have incredible snacks, just snacks that are hard to get. Yeah, I always go through there and just like fill my cart full of stuff. I'm like, let's see what this is about.
We got a dude from Beijing on our team, and he totally has been like bringing care packages over, so we get like crazy Chinese treats that I'm like, oh, it's delicious.
So good. I think my favorite thing for sure is like the different types of Lays, where it's like
shrimp, right?
Yeah, like shrimp Lays or like different types of Lays. It's like sweet Cajun, honey, chili, whatever the hell.
I think the Philippines does the best job with Lays.
Yeah, there's incredible flavors, and like otherwise, yeah. And then Canada, like I'm always on the lookout for like all dressed chips or whatever. Yeah, I'm all about it.
How many maple syrup? All of them.
Dude, they're all about ketchup, man. I don't know what it is, but like
I do. Canadian... My family's part from Canada, right? Maybe that's where the lacrosse comes from. I always thought about that. Right.
It was either lacrosse or curling. There's actually I work with a dude in Toronto, and he's comes from a full family of curlers, which is I think is awesome. Not that I know of, but
did you not see the Hearts on Fire where they're doing curling?
Oh, okay. That's right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Hey, come on, some curling jokes in this.
And we're off on more tangents. All right. So let's talk about what you're doing today, sir, which is ForeVR Games, specifically VR. A lot of people know about the VR space, but maybe they haven't been paying attention to it recently. There's been a lot of huge changes because like initially there was huge jumps specifically when the very first Oculus came out. But then since then, Facebook, now called Meta, has purchased Oculus, and now it's just called the Meta Quest, or just the Meta device. And things have kind of changed since then. There you go. That's awesome. Very fancy. I like. Does it say Lame Boy on it? That's hilarious.
Oh, it sure does. Look at that. Come on. What?
Nice. Amazing. I enjoy your pieces of flair, sir.
Thank you.
So being the fact that not only are you a consumer of VR, but you're also something that's in the space specifically, what's your overall take on the VR market as it stands today?
Oh man, we're at the beginning. It feels just like iPhone. It's crazy. Same type of energy. A lot of really smart people solving. I like to relate it at, we're at this stage where we're debating on where you place your fingers on the screen on touch screen. So having done this before in touch screen, we're kind of at the stage of like, well, what's a default like interaction mechanism? So when we were first developing on like phones, we're like, well, how does a user hold it? Do they hold it like this? Do they hold it like this? Okay. Do they have is it one-handed play? Is it two-handed play? So there's a twin stick shooter who came in. So you're trying to like, is it a tap game? Right. So we really we're kind of at that stage right now where we're really discovering all of the different ways to interact with it. So we're kind of at that point, right, of the market. So early growth, right? Even with its pace of where it's going, this is going to be so crazy, mass market consumer thing. Oh my gosh! Now being in it for a few years, it's nuts. Like we're making the future.
Yeah, there's been a lot of amazing games that have come out. And it's funny that you mentioned the touchscreen interactivity, because that's something that people really take for granted, especially like with like early games, like early iPhone games. There was a lot of like touch and swipe, or just swipe in general, where it's like you have Angry Birds where it's like I touch and hold back, and then I'm aiming my trajectory, or cut the rope, which is I'm going to make a couple like specific swipes, but I'll feel skillful after.
You want to go some inside baseball?
Yeah, let's do it.
So where we're really at, right, with in terms of phases of development, Think about, we're at the stage at the consumer stage. We're at the consumer stage where they understand the tap, right? It's analogous to the trigger, right? So what we find is most consumers, like that, we found that these consumers are kind of coming from two different trajectories. There's some that are coming from hardcore gaming, and then a lot of them are coming from casual, right? And they understand touchscreen. They don't know how to do this stuff, right? It's nuts. It's nuts. So designing experiences for that is just, it's where we're at, right? We're currently figuring. So we're at that stage of the market. So think, there's a few big games that are out there, right? We're thankfully included in there. So we've been making the sports side, trying to kind of expand that side. But the potential of this thing is nuts, just absolutely nuts. You're able to accurately track within a dime at a distance relativity, right? Like with the pure accuracy. It's freaking nuts. But it takes a lot to figure out how you're actually going to make that work.
No kidding. Yeah, that's why we're nice to engineers for a reason.
Well, it's not just engineers. Here's the rub, right? Like it's simulation. I have made. Here's a fun thing. I have made simulation for high-end consumer. So I've made them for professional athletes, where they pick up the device with this resolution and are astounded by how realistic it feels to them. And it feels like real life, right? Astounded. So much so that they use that in practice, right? So I have that side, so I've developed full-on mechanics to make them blow their mind. And so it's interesting when you give it to consumers. So think, when you give that to consumers, is it going to be a success or fail, right? Absolute fail, because you need the muscle and the muscle memory of the task to be able to do that, right? And what you come to find is, like in bowling, right? When you roll, it literally tracks everything that you're doing to the minutia. So if you don't hold your hand, you do like a wrist motion like this, you just broke your wrist, right? Like with a bowling ball, and it's going to make the physics of it go nuts, right? So I'm like, yeah. So what we found is, we got to smooth it out a lot for consumer, not because of the ability of headset, but because of ability of consumer. Just physically, they don't have the muscle. Imagine a really good relation I'd love to do with it is like, hey, hardcore gamer who really gets it, now go play with your left arm. Same thing, right? Now imagine your mom or your grandma ability to go navigate a main menu or know what a main menu is.
Yeah, and that's the thing that a lot of people take for granted, is that like when you make games for everybody in general, like especially if you're doing a mass market game, which your company kind of is, and you already kind of touched on this because you're doing Forever Bowl, Forever Darts, and Forever Cornhole, which are all like
the funnel.
Yeah.
Wide
yeah, exactly.
funnel.
Yeah. They're all casual games that people know how to play, but when you transfer it over to VR, it's a different ball game. Yeah. So it's familiar and yet different, but at least they know, here's this general thing that I'm familiar with, and then I want to see if I'm actually good at this, or it's really fun. And I guess related to that, I'm curious, what have players said about your games, and then what have you been most excited about in terms of like developing those games, the ones that are public that you can talk about? That is,
selfishly, I loved designing the mechanics. Just selfishly, I have wanted to make sportsy mechanics forever. I've never been able to make sports games, right? So when I got to do this, I have a degree in real-time interactive simulation. I love linear algebra, and I love high impact sports and velocity, right? And impact. So a lot of joules of energy. So being able to actually make a throw where I can literally throw as like shadow boxing, throw as hard as humanly possible. Oh man, that was the thing. Just making that. So just doing that was just amazing. I'm sorry, what was the question again? I was just thinking about the throw, and I'm like, that
No,
throw
it was
is
just
so good. It
yeah.
was
I'm
so much
just
fun to do.
no, that's awesome. I mean, honestly, like that's always a magical moment for me as a designer is when you mimic something that people know about, or you mimic something that has some precedence either in their mind or it has in a physical object, and they pick it up and it just makes sense to them. That's the biggest compliment ever. Is like I get this, or this feels good, or it makes sense. Like this feels good when somebody's holding a controller or playing a game is like one of the biggest compliments that you can give a team for sure.
Oh my gosh, when you see it in real life, have you ever seen users in real life use your game and you just like you happen by them just by happenstance? You're like, awesome.
Yeah, no, I've seen people on the bar train play my slot machines before and being like, "Yeah, you're doing good. You're doing good. Keep doing. Keep pressing the button."
I walked by a person playing my on a plane. They were playing my Scrabble Kindle game.
Nice.
I'm like, awesome. Black and white Kindle. Black and white Kindle. We coined the term not it's not frames per second, it's seconds per frame.
That's hilarious. Did you do the thing that I like to do to them, which is like, "Hey, what you playing? What do you think about that?" Did you approach them or no?
Oh God. I walked in, I'm like, I love that you're playing my game. So I always tell them it's mine. I'm like, yeah, it's my game. They're like, what? I'm like, yes, I've totally made that. I made it with team. It's amazing. What do you want?
You want the secret unlock codes that get you what you
So
want.
here's an important thing, everyone, that you should take very seriously. Approach every user like a VIP because they are. They gave you money, right? Go be genuinely interested in how they like the game and what they want to see in it, and be respectful about them by responding to them, in a courteous way. I actively give out my email to every consumer I can, right? It's like, let me know. Like, I appreciate it. Thank you for playing my games. Tell me how we can do them better. Thank you for championing them, right? And I found with that human connection that you really you start building community. It really helps.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's such a rare thing. I mean, Gabe from Valve is really like one of the first people to do that. Is literally just everybody knows his email, and he puts it in his games and always encourages people to email him, and he still responds. Like he has every reason not to respond, but like the fact that you make time for people shows that you care, and if people care enough to actually write you, that matters a lot for sure.
Oh, I was drifting a while ago. Sorry, end of day brain fogs. Um, uh, uh, that's actually a very important lesson I learned as a manager that I found was a virtue that I just kind of happened by happenstance because I really am super interested in every part of the game development cycle. So as a manager, I'd go to walk to everybody on the team. So I was executive producer for a Sims title in the Maxis brand. I would go and we had a team of 50, 60, right? And pre-pro. Whoa, big team, right? Right, full dev. So we had a couple of those, and so I would literally go to the team and just go to an engineer and just like I see him sitting there and we strike conversation. I'm like, I'd love to see what you're doing. Can you show me? Right? And they're like, they would actually love to see it, right? And they'd love to show you what they're working on because you're actually interested and you ask informed questions. Why did you do it like that? I can see in this, and so being genuinely interested is, I think, a very strong virtue for leadership.
Yeah, I agree with that wholeheartedly. And also, again, it goes back to you're finding out how somebody thinks as well, which not to be in a creepy way, but like it tells you a lot about a person. And again, the human experience is learning how other people think and how they interact with the world that's different than you. And not to say that you're predicting their behavior, but it's more of like if you know how somebody is and how they think about the world, then your interactions with them will be more informed, and you have a better understanding of them and how they'll approach game development as well, for sure. Yeah.
Oh Oh yeah.
Are there any other like really huge hurdles in development in VR specifically, and finding an audience that you can think of? I know that like there's little things that people take for granted. Like I know for a long time, like going upstairs or like, you know, walking traditionally was always a really difficult thing.
Locomotion is challenging. It will limit your audience. Just if you're able to make your game where you don't move, right? Look to see which one the number one, like Beat Saber, right? How many times do you go around a world doing stuff? But there is a consumer who isn't that. It's just a challenge, right? So we've luckily found our way there, but we've done it through, you know, a lot of hard work, right? Several games, like hundreds of thousands of users, right? Millions of users playing through our stuff. So, you know.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So I have a final question for you, and it's very serious. Are you ready?
Okay.
Who would win in a fight to the death? Gore versus Ghost. Who comes out on top?
Gore would destroy him. Come on. Like, what are you talking about? Ghost? Like, Ghost, they're just a bunch of hired guns with the Tobias guy. Like, Gore is mean, right? I guess they're all hired guys too. But they're big, right? Yeah. And they got costumes and they can bump into them. Like, dude, he's playing frail old guy. Unless he does like a spell. unless he recruits Gojira. They would just, you know,
just play Ouroboros and distract from them while Papa meanwhile gets eaten by the worm by Gore.
Oh yeah, like Papa. No.
R.I.P. Now we've lost everybody because they're like, what are these metal nerds talking about? Anyway, thank you. I just needed to ask you that dumb question because I figured you appreciate it. All right, Mike. It was so much fun to talk to you. It was great to catch up. Is there anything that you'd like to plug before we leave? Social media sites, cool things happening in your life?
First, I'll get in the frame. There we go. So thanks for having me on. Really appreciate it. This has been fun. Definitely check us out, ForeVR Games. We have Forever Bowl, Forever Darts, and we have just launched Forever Cornhole, and it's actually a fan favorite. So it's it's holding at a 4.7. So that's super cool. So we're building the Forevers, so go check us out. We're going to be launching another one before the end of the year, and then look forward to more next year. So yeah, holidays are going to be fun. So definitely check out what we're doing there. And then for those who like to learn things, definitely check me out on LinkedIn. I try to post informative stuff up there. I have my production process that I abide by that has helped me achieve above a 4.5 star game for almost everything I do. Almost, right? By and large, above there on average. That's commercially successful. So take a look at that. That's my process. So again, thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, it was great to catch up and great to have you on. And for clarity, 4.5 is very good, and any like additional percentage above 4.5 is really good. So being at 4.7 as a fellow game designer and a fellow nerd, that's huge. Like,
right? Like, yeah. Wow. Like, and I am so proud. So I want to give a plug. Can I give a plug for the team who did it?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, wonderful. So Rich, he's a wonderful game creator that we brought on. I think it was last year. Was it this year? Oh man, I think it was last year. Man, time. We're in COVID time. But Rich has worked with a wonderful studio called XR Games. They have a wonderful portfolio. Check them out. So this was a second party we were working with as a collab with our internal team. And this is the very first game that has come forth with that. So great work, team, for putting that together. Really impressed with the throw. Really impressed with the overall experience and the flair that's been put onto it. So good show, guys. Good show.
Well played. Awesome. Mike, thank you so much for your time. It was fantastic to talk to you.
It was great to see you. Great to see everybody. Have a good night. Go ForeVR Games, not
There you go.
ForeVR forever.
So I don't flub it again by accident.
Oh yeah, here you go. I'll start doing things.
All right, and with that, everybody else, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.